There we are. Welcome to Brown and Browner.
Welcome to Brown and Brown. No, I'm sorry. It's Brown and Browner. We got to say that right. It's Brown and Brown.
It's a law firm.
I'm just going to nod and act like I'm listening.
Straight
you
up.
Get that for my wife?
Yeah, this?
Yeah.
I got this for my kids 3 Father's Days ago. Yeah. It's a small.
Okay. There's something that I just have to talk about before we do the U.S. Open. Yep. All right. Father's Day was yesterday. Yep. Another reason why we need to post all of this so it's relevant. Absolutely. I got a nice shirt. My son got me something really cool that I'm just trying to figure out, see if I can get it to work. A little tech thing he got me.
Yeah.
And then my wife got me a joke button. You press it and it tells really bad dad jokes.
That's awesome.
I mean, and you know me, I'm a comical person. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
However, let's see if you tried to do that on Mother's Day.
Oh, it'd be bad. Real bad.
Why is it that Dad's Day is
double standard?
Dinner is universal, but it's a tie. You might get lucky and get some golf bag accessory, which is cool. I love those. But dad joke buttons, how come they don't have a mom joke button? You ever heard of mom joke button?
It's a sexist policy.
But God forbid if we did that the other way around. Oh my God! See,
yeah, exactly.
He valued Mother's Day, and
no, believe me, I get it. I get it.
I just had to comment on that because we get the short end of the stick. I got into
100%. Well, so I was listening to this podcast, and I don't know if the guy's a little bit more like he's more like probably middle of the road in terms of politics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to have an open conversation. He had a few guests on and stuff like that. So he's like, and this is June, so this is Pride Month, obviously. So we're celebrating all the Pride stuff. And he's like, did you know that outside of Pride Month, we celebrate Pride holidays 142 times a year?
I did not know that.
A third of the year is dedicated with different holidays and things for Pride affiliations in different capacities. There's even Gay Uncle Day in August. Yeah, he went through the whole list. It was pretty crazy. Like
I've never even heard of any of that.
Nobody's heard of it. I didn't know it existed. A holiday. I mean, the notion exists. I didn't realize we were celebrating it.
Yeah.
But he was like, there's over 142 holidays for Pride Month, and yet you have one Mother's Day and one Father's Day. And he even went so far as to say there's only 28 days for African American History Month.
I wasn't even going to go there because
but he did. He went that far.
Even with the 28 days, let's be real. I think we talked about this. I went to the Dusabe Museum here in Chicago, and it was supposed to be the Black History Museum. It wasn't even open on a weekend during Black History Month.
Stuff.
I don't know if that's just poor management of it or what. But one thing I have noticed is towards the end of Black History Month, I start seeing things on TV. At the very beginning or just before, I don't see anything.
Remember, because at the beginning, you got the Super Bowl, you got Valentine's Day.
you got
every other distraction.
Great month to have Black History Month, right?
You have every other distraction in the world other than what you're trying to focus on.
Wait, Black History, hold on a second. Super Bowl's on. Wait a minute, got to take care of my baby. We got to observe the presidents of the past, some of which are in stark contrast to what Black History Month should be about.
Yes, sir. Washington.
So now we got 25 days, and then if you take off just the way things are, what I've seen, you got a week of Black History Month if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
If they show Roots again or anything like that, I'm gonna write somebody because I hate watching that movie just because of the content.
I think it's actually offensive.
It is to me.
I think it is too. I watch it and I get the historical context and what they're trying to portray and everything else. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself from the other eyes, and I'm like, they can't enjoy watching this.
How is this teaching me Black history? How is that making me feel proud to be? If anything, it makes me angry.
I'll say this very jokingly. Okay, if we're going to celebrate it in the same way that we do with African History Month by showing roots, then why aren't we showing every single mass shooting in the country when we're celebrating white folks?
Oops.
Yeah, I went there.
Oops.
I went there.
That was good. That was good,
I mean,
bro.
that's what like okay, so like Indians. I mean, yeah, I like the movie Gandhi from 1984. All right,
I like it too.
The
Was that
actor
Ben
did a great job.
Kingsley?
He got an Oscar for it, the whole 9 yards.
Was
So
that Ben Kingsley?
yeah, Ben Kingsley,
Yeah,
awesome
he was
job,
great.
unbelievable actor. I love it to death. At the same time, I'm thinking like, I don't want to sit there and watch this if they have some sort of Indian celebration, like Indian Independence Day or otherwise. Like,
no. Like,
what? I want to watch some British actor whip Ben Kingsley? No, I don't want to watch
that. How does that make me feel proud?
Exactly. So I'm like, it's a laughing stock in terms of just like how we try to give things focus, and yet nobody remembers. Nobody cares even.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's
Nobody
the problem.
cares.
Nobody cares. And today's world, we continue to try to reduce the history part and only remember what's recent just so that we can make ourselves feel better. Again, if we want to teach people not to do the wrong things, let's look at the past and all the wrong things we've done and shine a light on that. Hey, for instance, when we were talking about Black History Month, still want to get to the US Open. Talking Black History Month. Let's see. Many of the inventions that people have claimed were all the slaves doing it. You know, they were snoring and having dreams while the slave was sitting there working on these things, and they held them accountable to working on these things, or they got the whip and they completed these things, but then someone else took the credit. You're going to tell me the cotton gin? Let's see. A white man ain't picking no cotton. He had slaves, but we invented the cotton gin. My ass, you did.
I had a fun conversation with my grandfather before he passed on my mom's side. And, you know, he was an immigrant from India coming in, set up our family in the United States back in the late 70s and all that. So I give him a lot of credit for that. At the same time, like he took small business, made it into something. Family's got a legacy with all sorts of business stuff in New York. I joke with him before he passed. I joked with him. I'm like, do you realize this city wouldn't exist? And this is back when I was like a teenager. So I was just learning like history, Black history, stuff like that. And I had just learned that the elevator was created by a Black man, Otis. Right?
Hello, Otis.
So I was sitting there joking. We were literally in the middle of Manhattan. We're looking around all these skyscrapers. I'm like, you know, these buildings wouldn't exist if literally a Black man didn't create an elevator.
Well, and honestly, let's be real honest about this. America was built on the backs of slavery. 100%. But there's no credit given to the people, and reparations, we just didn't give you anything, and we'll let it simmer and let it sit, and before you know it, everybody will forget about it, or we have a built-in excuse that, well, how do we do it now today? Well, you should have done it back then, because that would have helped a lot of people like my family, sharecroppers, which was another word for slavery, because if you don't know what the crop is actually making in profit, how are you sharing in those?
Absolutely.
So I could tell you anything, you know what? And I've heard it from my mom and told me about grandparents. Yeah, they came over and told us that we didn't make any money this year. And since you lived on the land, you know, we call it even, or you owe us a little bit. Well, that's making you grateful because they allow you to live on the land, but you're the one that's doing all of the work on the land, and they're selling it for millions in the produce market and in here and in there. And this, you know, and none of this is given back. And people, oh, well, I don't want to give reparations. Well, if you would have given it when it was supposed to be given, then maybe Blacks would have been a lot further along.
Yeah,
maybe there'd be a less disparity when we look at education and financial status and things, because we would have had something that we earned to start with as a foundation. Hey, you know what? We do the land. We could just have our own land now. Now we can start selling the produce and make the money. You know what happened? One other thing I have to, just a small story. You know, the land that my family worked on back in the day, down in Arkansas, you know, the people who owned that land, they lived across the street from the houses that they allowed all of my family to occupy, and the land that was over there and they worked on. My mother saw this lady, like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it was a lady who was the wife of the family who owned the land. And she said, "Oh, it's so good to see you. I got a gift for you." She gave my mom a gift. She didn't say, "Hey, we want to help your family. We feel like we've used you guys. We're rich and you're not, and we're going to help." What she did was she gave my mother a videotape. So maybe it was more than 15 years ago, but she gave him her videotape. And on this videotape, it showed my mom, my uncles, my aunts, all nappy headed eating watermelon in the back area of the house. And she told my mom, "We love looking at these pictures. We love looking at these videos. It reminds us of how you guys were." Think about that. That's what she gave my mom as a present, as a thank you for making us rich and for all the injustices we might have done to your family as a result of the lies that we told, that we didn't make money for a decade when we made millions and we gave you nothing. But that was sharecropping. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about real history. What people want to do today is, well, why do they deserve reparations? That's not even relevant now. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Then you should have that prejudice take the same, step sideways when you talk about how you interact with Black people and what you think about Black people. When I hear people say, that one thing, I can't get that comment from the lady from Indiana University when she said Beyonce and country music, and she said, "You guys were working the land. We were the ones who planned it. You were just planting because we told you where to plant it, and you did it because we're going to whip you if you didn't." Oh, so that made you great, right? So that in country music, right? So Black people were in the country, but they're not country.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you back that up?
You bring up the perfect segue. So if you think about it, the concept of sharecropping, wasn't allowed basically in general formats where, you got revenue share essentially, right?
Supposedly.
Let's take that down to modern day in sports. Athletes want a piece of the pie. They can't have it. Jordan was one of the first ones that did it with his shoe deal. And it was thanks to his mom, funny enough, that contrived that concept.
Yes, Dolores Jordan, thank you.
Yes, exactly. That was breakthrough, to say the least, in the shoe industry. And now you've got guys like LeBron and others who are probably going to look to be owners someday of some of these teams, or they're trying to be in some capacity, obviously, because they know that's the next evolution, is to own it. Just like we do in the business world, you own the supply chain, you own the means to production, you own everything, and that's how you make money and create lasting legacy or lasting wealth. Now, like you just said, the reparations part, the perfect counterexample is exactly what you just said. Had there been some sort of revenue sharing or things of that nature, not even to the equal degree, but even some degree,
20%,
basically creating an inheritance down the line of some kind, that changes the game of society a millionfold.
And that's why they never wanted to give it to you. That's why I saw something interesting on YouTube about that, where there was this actress, Black actress / comedian, and she says, I want to see if I can break this up. She says, well, what you have to do in order to promote change when it comes to equality and bigotry, etc., is you can't just keep shouting it because people just turn a deaf ear to it. What you have to do is hit them in the pocket.
Yes.
Because if they can make, so for instance, since she referenced, she said, the sit-ins that they had, the reason that it changed is because in Montgomery, Alabama, they couldn't make any money.
That's true.
So once that came up, now all of a sudden it's like, well, shoot, they're affecting our pockets. So we need to give some concessions, right?
That's the only way you can try to make things happen. I mean, I'm sorry to say, even within our own company, that's how it works, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it is. Move from one bucket to the other, that's when they were like, oh, wait a minute, how'd that happen?
It's sad because that's where it's like everything becomes a business. And that's what she starts this comment off with. Everything becomes a business. And what doesn't happen is we don't inject that human reasoning and saying, hey, it's one thing, I could make billions of dollars, but is this right? Is this fair? And we don't care about fair and right anymore. It's all about, let's make sure I get the most out of it. You know what? What's ever in my wake, they'll deal with that themselves. I'm not worried about it.
That's how it works.
Yeah, it's just like how we're destroying the atmosphere, how we're destroying the planet that we live on. quickly because we're going to suck everything out of it and leave it for people in the future to deal with.
My big beef with the whole ecosystem argument and stuff like that is, okay, we've taken good measures around the country in different forms all over the place, which is great. I'm sorry, but there are global players in this world that punish any bit of progress we're making on that in this country to every degree in the other countries, and I've seen it firsthand. Every trip I've taken to India, anytime I've taken a trip to a third world country, I'm sorry, but there are no regulations or governance over there. And that has more pollutive effects, especially when you have 1.3 billion people, and then China too, which I haven't been to, but I've heard the stories.
Yep, me too.
That's a third of the world, basically, between those two countries that have more pollution and no EPA type regulation, nothing like that stops all the things that they're doing.
That's right.
And again, I don't even have to prove it. The most polluted cities in the world literally are on a list. China and India make up a majority of the top 50. And I've seen it. I felt it in my lungs when I landed.
Sure.
I landed in Mumbai, and I felt my lung capacity go down as I'm breathing off of a plane because I can see the smog, and I'm literally, it's that bad. Envision like you're being, let's say, in like West Loop of Chicago, and then staring out into downtown and seeing this, you see a nice clear line on a pretty day, even when you're driving in from like 90-94 from the northern burbs, you can see the entire city line. It's gorgeous, right?
You
can't do that in India. It's brown soot in the air, man.
But why? What? See, to me, it's this. So it's the big corporations that create this, right?
Well, it's corporations. Honestly, here's the sad part. The big corporations do it, but because there's not even regulation, even at local levels, it's happening more in the villages, believe it or not. I mean, I see open burning constantly, only because they don't have the resources to get heat or anything. I mean, the reality is, a lot of the world is poor, and you haven't gotten resources out there. You've been so busy trying to prioritize getting them internet access, you haven't thought about basic needs for water and shelter and food, fire.
Right, you are.
There's probably places in the world that have fiber before they have fire. Like, you know what I mean? Like.
But again, because we forget about what it means to look out for each other. We should be looking out for the human race first. Exactly. No, you know what it is? It's the 1%ers that are looking out for themselves. And let's be real. Let's be real. And I'm not taking anything from anyone who's worked hard to get what they have earned it. Yeah. But at some point, you've created generational wealth.
Yep.
If you are worth $20 billion, just a number.
Yep.
Would 1 billion change your life?
Nope.
But with 1 billion, but see, here's the problem. If you even donate, because we have people doing that now, the Warren Buffetts of the world, they're donating the money, but who's running that? And how much are they skimming off the top? And, just like you hear when you donate something on TV, how much of that actually reaches where you're expecting as far as the help?
Hardly.
And so what, 5% of what you donate?
My personal prerogative always, anytime I'm donating or giving my time, is unless I see the actionable items that are coming down from either my money or my time, I'm not donating. Like, I don't like, I hate to say it, I hate like arbitrarily giving money, like say the Red Cross. Because I know for every dollar I give, maybe 10 cents gets done on the ground to actually see as actionable problem.
That's the problem.
Whereas if I donate directly to something that I see physically, or can at least know that the money's going 100% to that cause, I won't throw it at it. I mean, some people call me selfish for it, but I'm like, look, you don't know where your money is going. You can donate $1 billion. I don't care who you donate, whatever it is. Do you really know that $1 billion is going to make a true down-to-down, one-to-one impact at the ground level?
Probably not. And that's the sad part. And what you said to me is, I do it now and did it because I wanted to teach my kids. They were growing up. We've got a little something. We're the poorest people in Lincoln Park. Let me tell you right now. That ain't even a joke. That's for real. I live in a 1,000 square foot house with 4 people and 2 dogs. And we had 2 cats. We got a snake. We had a gerbil. We had fish in a 1,000 square house. All right. And we didn't have a basement. So
you got more of a zoo than Lincoln Park Zoo is what you're telling me.
Yeah, pretty much. Per square inch, right?
Yeah.
So, or square foot. But my thing is this: I wanted to teach them that the way the world gets better is for us to give back to things.
Absolutely.
And we used to go to churches and we would feed the homeless, and a
Yeah.
lot of people didn't know how to really cook. So I was teaching them how to cook and cut, like, onions and things like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But that made it a dent. And then you sat with them and you ate with them and you talked to them to understand how they got to be homeless. And some of these people were brilliant professors who had issues with medication, and then all of a sudden, poof, they lost their life. But we don't ever know that. And that's why I want to donate my time directly, because I can see how I impacted that person. When they tell me thank you and they grab my arm and say, thank you so much for providing this and for talking to me like a real person, that's how you help.
Well, and that's what I think that also gets lost, as a lot of the 1%ers make a ton of money. Their time, and well, let me rephrase that. Some of them think that by putting their time and efforts toward making that money allows them to also get more money so they can throw it at other causes that they want to support. So
which isn't wrong.
Both arguments there, and I have no problem with that.
I don't have any problem with that either. You're trying, you're doing what you can in the way you can, and I'm okay with that.
But the basal value of the day for the majority of folks, time is more valuable than money. And that human interaction was something that nobody's going to forget. Yourself, the other person, whoever it is, that's the real value in life. And I mean, I'd same manner as you. Like, I'd rather be on site with my kids doing something and showing them, hey, this is how it's changing stuff, rather than throwing money arbitrarily. My daughter's probably asked me at least like 50 to 100 times since she was born and could talk. Like, we drive through downtown Baltimore. There's peddlers all over the place, We've got something called the squeegee kids here, basically.
They hit the windows looking for $1.
And Daddy's like, don't you want to give them some money? I'm like, you know what? I don't, because at the end of the day, I don't know what they're going to do with that money. I hate to say it. I mean, I want to help them, but I don't know what their plight is or anything like that. Now, if I were to go to a shelter, different story.
Yeah.
Because I know they're trying to get help. You know what I mean? Versus if they take my $1 now, are they just going over to the local candy store, whatever, or local liquor store, whatever it is, to use something with that? I get kind of jaded because I was in, I don't know if you remember, like, being in Kansas City. You remember the Plaza?
Yes, love the Plaza.
High end, net worth all around, the whole 9 years. So there's always constantly peddlers there and all that.
I was going to say that's always part of it.
So for years, my friends and I used to go there, high school, college, all the time, and we'd see these peddlers, and we'd give them money. I mean, because we were just like that back then. We would, see them and be like, here's $5, $10, whatever. And it was a lot of money for college. So I was like, whatever. So we'd give it to them. One day, see this peddler, and we've seen him for, months and months at a time and ever. Give him some money. We're like, all right, let's, we're kind of curious, and we had some time to kill, I guess, between bar. We were just like, you know what? Let's see where he goes with this. So got done, maybe like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock comes around. And we're just kind of keeping a brief eye from across the street from this like outdoor area that we're sitting at and see where he goes. And he's walking into the garage, into the parking garage, one of the structures out there. So I'm like, where do you think he's going? So we're like, screw it, let's go. We start following the guy back and forth, and get down. He gets up to like 3rd level, walks up, has a car there. And I'm thinking, okay, that gets interesting. The car is a C-Series Mercedes.
I was going to say, does he come driving out with a Mercedes? See, that's what's wrong with the world. Everybody's got a scam.
So jaded after that. It has a lasting memory, even to this day, in my mind.
And I'm with you on that, because you don't know, like, you've heard the stories, the Channel 2, the news stories about the peddlers that are on the side, and they follow them home and they go back to their big house in the suburbs, and they got a network of people scamming people. Yeah. And I got jaded. I used to work downtown for this accounting firm, and a small accounting firm. And you have peddlers downtown all the time, right? And it just used to be on Franklin. So like at Franklin and what was it, Randolph? There was one of the, how you go to those Asian places and they have like the combination meal for lunch. And back then, this is 30 years ago, for $5, I got lunch to eat too. Right?
You could eat for lunch for $5. It was awesome.
Yeah. It was like the Pita Inn of the 1990s, right? So I go in, I get something, and I remember this one guy who's always around. So I buy an extra lunch. I go back to where I work, and he's standing right there, and I give it to him. And this said, "What is this?" And was mad at me for giving him food instead of the money that I spent.
And I've seen that situation too, firsthand.
I was so pissed, and it took me forever. I just recently, for the first time in a while, I was going to this Korean restaurant called Del Sol, and it's really good. And the tacos are expensive there. It's like $4 or $5 for a single taco. There ain't even fucking 5 letters in the word taco, and you charge me $5. Goddamn. But there was a bum across the street, and he was singing, and he heard me playing. I play my music loud because I can't hear, and I'm playing music, and he's loving it. He's singing. He's like, "Yeah, I love that song." And I'm trying to. You got to be careful. I don't want the bum to be coming up, and it's like we're buddy, but I also want to give him the respect of a person like you should. So I'm trying to balance that. And he comes over, and I said, "You know what? I got something for you." I walked in, I bought a taco.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him.
Yeah.
And he was so appreciative of that. So the unfortunate thing is that I'm sure let's say of all the people out there
in the world.
Yeah.
It's just that there's also bad, and that's the thing.
Yeah. So you got a 50-50, right? And you just hope you happen to find the right good where you can do good versus someone who's just there pretending to, playing the role. The role of the bum is being played by Joe Dirt. And he comes over and you try to be kind, and then they're mad. And I have seen it multiple times, like the guys who pedal on the street and they have the the cup and they shake it. And sometimes you give them $1, sometimes you don't. Boy, especially for me, it's like being black. It's like they look at me like you're supposed to give me something because
you're entitled, as if, right?
I get it. And it's like, okay, you got me on the guilt part. I feel you, but no, because I have to say that because everybody, and then they get mad at me. Yeah, are you kidding me? Like, hold on a minute, I'm struggling too. Now, granted, I'm working a little harder on my struggle than you are. But for you to down me and like hit my car because I didn't give you my money, as if you're entitled to my money because you asked for it, I got problems with that.
Yep,
I got problems with that.
100% agree.
Please don't catch me on the wrong day, bum, because you might get the beat down. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek with it as a joke.
Yeah, of course.
I'm that kind of person. But at the same time, you feel offended. Now I'm offended because you're giving me lip because I didn't give you something.
Yes. Well, and like you said, unfortunately it's the 1% of the bad that makes up for that ruins it for the 99% of the good, right? Like that's just how it all works.
Or maybe it isn't just 1% of the bad, but we'll call it that.
It's growing, unfortunately, and that's the bad.
We'll call it that. Hey, you know what? I missed this segue. I had to bring that up. I did want to talk about the one part. So this lady says, you always out there, everybody's begging to ask for rights, right? Like it's sad that we have to ask for that. Like treat me like an equal, like a person. We're not in the Declaration of Independence era where we're 3/5 of a person. We're actually 5/5 of a person. Okay, so treat me like you would treat your neighbor, like you would treat anybody else. But she says that we keep asking for their right, and that's why he said the only reason that things change is when you hit them in the pocket. The segregation, all of the things that they did, it didn't end because they wanted it to end. It ended because they're like, wait a minute, black people have dollars, so we need to, and they're affecting our business because people aren't coming to our business because they don't want to deal with that. So, and she even made a point about Abraham Lincoln, the All Emancipation Proclamation, all of that stuff. He said, and I remember reading about this. A lot of people they really did not like that decision, but it crippled the Confederate Army.
I remember that.
But you can read it, you can make it look like, well, we were doing this for these people, but they really weren't.
They took away all of those 80% of the troops or something like that. It was some obscene number.
Yeah. So, but again, we fail. That's why American history needs to really be taught versus this revisionary history that people just because history is his story doesn't mean that his story has to be incorrect. It should be, let's teach people what we did so we can appreciate people for who they are, for what they've gone through, understand the journey it took them to get to where they are. And I'm not saying, like you were saying, there's some bad people, some good people. You know what? I lived in the ghetto. I both make it in the ghetto. Ghetto was not me because I was intelligent. No, let me rephrase that because it can be misconstrued. Because I was a smart little kid who wasn't afraid to voice his opinion. That put me at odds with the whole neighborhood.
You had more motivation and determination than your peers, because that's usually how you separate the two. I mean, at the end of the day, there's folks who take the easy road and the hard road in life, right? It's the ones that take the hard ones that get the better payoff in life, hopefully, at the end of the day. The ones that take the easy road, sometimes they lead into danger. It is what it is, you know.
And so I know how it feels. I know how it is.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it's a rough situation. But gosh, how many ghettos will we have if the people who's these grandchildren, now they're grandchildren of these people, what if they had their own land? What if they had their own money? What if they were accepted as an equal and weren't looked at as less than or given the same opportunities? And we didn't need the idea of affirmative action because we were doing that in everything we did, right? It wasn't about your color, it was about your performance. You know, I never want somebody to look at me and say, hey, you know, because you're black, we're going to give you something. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they come up with reparations, we're good. You know, come back and get that million. I'm good. But I want to earn mine. I've always been about earning mine. I don't want any more than I've earned, but I definitely don't want less. I've always gotten less because that's the way the world is set up.
That's the way it's set up. Yeah, exactly.
You know? Thank God my name is Roy, because did I tell you that story about me setting up for a job interview? I talked to the boss on the phone, sat there for 2 hours. He passed me because there was no way that this black person sitting in the lobby was that person I talked to on the phone. There's no way. That's why I'm just all black families. If you're listening, stop naming your kids Shaquita Lita and LaDasha and all sorts of stuff like that, because if somebody sees that on the resume, I don't care what you say. The people who are in power are looking at that and going, "Who? I got Christine and I got LaQuisha Disha Landisha. Which one do I want to hire?"
Well, and on the opposite end, those folks will say like, "Oh, you're staying away from the culture. You're hiding your culture." No, you're not hiding your culture. You're trying to set up your kids or whoever it is for neutrality in life, or at least advancement, or whatever it is. And it's not like you're trying to cater to that. It's just the reality of the world. I hate
that's
to say.
The reality of the world. I'm not trying to take away black culture. Heck, I'm black. I love black culture. Put it out there. And I had my Kente print on yesterday for Father's Day. Great. But there has to be a limit. And like you said, this is the way the world is. Another example, I used to work with this lady. Her name was Weiss. Her last name was Weiss. I'm not going to say her first name. Don't want to. Yeah, but Betsy, if you're out there, I had said your first name. When she was having her first child, she said, "Hey, Roy," we were talking, just, hanging out in the office. "I want to name my kid Ash. What do you think of that name?" And me right away like that. And I'm an adult, not a kid. Kids are way more creative. I said, "You don't want to name your kid Ash Weiss because it's too close to ass wipe. It's just way too close."
You're right.
Like, "You know what, Roy, you're right. She didn't name her kid Ash." But it's that kind of like just being aware. I'm not telling you to stop being black. You can name your kid Shaquille O'Neal if you want to.
Exactly.
But just be conscious of what the world sees when they pick up that name on a piece of paper. When they look at someone and they're evaluating things, and it's not right, but what's not right and what's real might be two different things.
Well, there's good and bad. Like I think we highlighted on the unfortunate that can happen if you just if you name your kid a certain way, they're going to get stereotyped whatever way it is, right? That's just what it is. Now, on the other hand, let's say you name your kid after someone, or maybe you didn't even intend on naming your kid after someone. A good example: you got Michael Jordan, you got Michael B. Jordan. There's a reason he used that B. He needs to be different than this guy. Like,
Right. And they just like the name Michael, and they're having to have a last name Jordan. Unfortunately, there's a famous person.
Exactly. You do something to separate yourself, because the worst thing you want to do in life is, as much as we love our idols, we don't want to be our idol exactly. You have to still be your own individual, Like,
I would hope. Some people want to be that person. They're usually those crazy stalkers.
There are. Yeah, there are. I'm not going to deny that.
All right, you know what? We've beat this to a pulp, I think.
Yeah, let's hone in on our main topics. The U.S. Open.
The U.S. Open. So segue into that. We're talking about stalkers. Man, I feel for Rory McIlroy. I
don't. There's two pieces to this. So on the one hand, like, the guy's been a great golfer all of his life. He probably was the second coming of, like, young golfer turned, played multiple championships, all of that. But if you think about it, he's shown up, but he hasn't shown up. Like, he hasn't taken that next step to be the man in golf.
No, nowhere near the Tiger Woods.
There's other guys I could name off that, frankly, have taken that step better than him, and some of them have just dropped off for, like, odd reasons. Like, it was Zach Johnson, right? So Zach Johnson,
he had a couple of good years. He was great.
Yeah, he had a couple of solid years. I just went on a tear. Jordan Spieth went on a tear.
What's his name? Bo. Who's the lefty? The lefty. What's
no,
his name?
sorry, lefty. Shoot, I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Feet never hit the ground when he hits the ball. Has a pink driver. Can shape a shot, better than sculptor shapes ice.
Absolutely. No, yeah, absolutely.
Can't think of his name right now though.
Either I'm blanking on it, but I know you're talking about. I can picture it. Like you said, there's getting guys in there that's been a little bit more of a flash in the pan, like 2, 3, 4 year runs, whatever. They've been solid. Rory's had a great career. Don't get me wrong; he's still one of the best golfers ever.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Sundays,
Bubba Watson, I couldn't think of his name. It just hit me. I was about to Google it, and it hit me because I hate Googling things because that means you're not using your brain.
Yeah. It was Bubba. Yep, you're right. Yep. So Bubba, Brooksy, you could name off a ton of them. It's crazy, but they've all had great runs at different points, won multiple majors, the whole 9 yards. But then Rory, consistent performer, just that he can't get that Sunday thing. And you know what it reminds me of? Billy Mick, classic lefty.
Yeah.
Big Sundays.
Yeah.
And yesterday was an indictment. I forget the stat that was thrown out when he went on that horrible run at the end of like bogey or whatever it was for Rory. But before that, he was like 347 for 347 on short range putts or something like that. Some obscene stat.
Did you see him putt yesterday? He was hitting everything 15, 20, 25, 30. He was hitting all of those putts.
14 holes. A god.
Counted that 4-footer, his knees were knocking, and he hit a putt like I hit mine on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is true. And that's actually, but I feel sorry for him as a human being because I know how that feels to work your ass off. And let's talk about this just for a moment. The weight of expectation.
Oh, of course, he's had bigger expectations than anybody in the game.
And that's what makes the greatest people when they talk about the GOATs. Tiger Woods. What's that?
I said Tiger, Jack, and then everything
and
else.
Then everybody else. Because despite the bar constantly being raised for every performance because of the consistency of their spectacular shots making and pressure putting, now it's expected every time you do it. So when you don't do it, oh my God, is there something wrong with Tiger? Does he have 18 more ugly women that he's having on the side that is messing up his game?
Scotty didn't even make the cut this weekend. And he was
No, he made the cut. No, he made the cut.
Oh, sorry, you made yeah. Sorry, you barely made the cut. Sorry,
the cut backed up to him. He shouldn't have made the cut, but it
cut back to him.
But he still was like 7, 8, 10 over whatever for the entire tournament, which is un-Scheffler-like. But they should give him a break. He says it. He's cool. He's like, well, the fact that I've won like 6 times already this year, like I'm not drawn out. I'm not worn down. It's just I had a bad week, which is.
But you know what? That's the thing, though. In all of our minds over the last 20 years, what's the bar? Tiger Woods. Who's going to live up to that? Like, if that bar didn't exist, then all these guys would still be seen as phenomenally great, which they are.
Exactly. But now you have a greatness bar, and if you don't do these things, if you don't do them by the age of such and such, if you haven't won so many tournaments, if you didn't win these types of tournaments, whether it's golf or any sport, but definitely in golf, Rory's got a lot to deal with. And the funny thing is, I was reading something this morning. He's flying back to his castle where his wife that he's about to divorce or already gave divorce papers to.
No, did you hear what happened there? So let's back up Rory's history a little bit. So back, this is like 10, maybe 15 years ago, he was actually engaged to Caroline Wozniacki, the tennis player.
That I remember, the Canadian
that lasted for like a year or something, and then it broke off or something magically, unfortunately happened there.
Mm-hmm.
Then he started dating someone else. He was married to this wife that, for a long time, I think almost like 7, 8 years, I want to say.
It's Erica.
And then, of course, we had the divorce talk literally, up until last week, apparently.
Last week, yeah. They're
like, they magically reconciled all of a sudden right before the tournament. So I'm thinking, okay, this will be a nice little storybook run if he wins the tournament. It's like, he's back in the whole game. They'll talk family, all that stuff. They'll make a big deal out of it. But poor guy's probably been going through a lot of crazy shit, if you think about it, like in terms of relationships off the course and all that. He's not banging 18 women. He's having, relationships, whatever he's got going on.
He doesn't go get any waitresses.
Yeah, exactly. He's not getting the Hooters waitresses or anything, or the what's it called, Twin Peaks calendar or whatever it is.
It's a Twin Peaks.
Yeah, Twin Peaks, yeah.
Oh my God, that place was
I
so
think
bad.
they closed them in so many locations. I forget. Yeah.
It was like that. It was, they had one up in the suburbs, and it was like, oh, this is the next Hooters. I went and I was like, no, it's not. And the food was horrible.
The
And
food's horrible, but the
yeah,
beer is nicely cold. I will say that's the one thing that was good there, other than maybe the a waitress here and there, but mostly the Vegas ones. Yeah.
no, I'm sorry. If you wanted to do that, the one thing, I know we're going off on a tangent, but
Yeah.
it would be Tilted Kilt.
Yes.
So Tilted Kilt, I went in there, and immediately, like the next day, I tried to buy my daughter clothes that covered her whole body because we went in Tilted Kilt, and I was like, oh my God. Like,
that is one place in Chicago that is legendary, I will say. It is an institution. God forbid your kids do, gymnastics, figure skating, whatever, and they end up on the C team. That's probably where they're going to end up, is Tilted Kilt eventually later in life.
but I tell you, you know what? And I get what you're saying about Rory. And you were talking about his relationships and stuff. I just feel for him that way. I do have to say that there are times when I'm like, you know what? Everybody keeps, like, I look at the odds. I bet on DeChambeau this week, along with a couple other guys. I had Finau, I had DeChambeau, I had Cantlay. All of them were right there, and I wanted Finau to win because I would have won more money. But like, I looked, and Rory, I know he just recently won a tournament for like the first time ever. His odds were like second to Scotty Scheffler, and I'm like, but he's not even that close to me. When you look at performance,
he hasn't been on the heater. That's the thing. And like you said, the expectations. Now, there's a bunch of things working on, and the relationship thing. That's one piece of this probably small pie. He's the Nike guy now, right?
Yep.
Because he's off the brand. It's literally Rory and his show. He's the guy that technically represents the PGA against Live Golf, and
yes, he does. And he was one of the most outspoken. Yes,
yeah, that was a big deal, head-to-head kind of thing. And I'm sure that probably weighed in also. And I don't know if you saw, like, after the 18th, after DeChambeau put it in, I guess over the last few tournaments, last few years, normally the person that's the runner-up has been stuck around to at least shake the hand of the winner, respectfully. Rory just walked off.
Did he? I didn't even notice that.
He was in the clubhouse. He was in the clubhouse, hoping for a playoff. Him and his caddy literally just walked out of there dejected and left. And they has a picture of him, walking in the parking lot, basically just leaving. And I'm like, okay, I get that, but there's still a decorum here. Like, it should still be class. Class.
Show some class. You know what? You can win and you can lose. You got to be good at both.
That disappointed me for the fact that Rory's always been seen as a class act. You know what I mean? Like, he's always seen like a class act. So it was kind of disappointing to see that at the end of the thing, to have him not at least acknowledge Bryson. And I get the whole rift of Live Golf and all that crap, but you know what? I like DeChambeau. I got to see him live here a few years ago.
I hated him before.
And he lost in that. I don't know if you remember that epic playoff with him and Cantlay at the BMW Open 3 years ago. It was out here in Baltimore. It went 8 holes over in the playoff.
For the playoff? Wow. I don't remember.
It was the greatest ending in golf I've ever seen in my life in person. It was great. My tickets for that day were $60 for a Sunday. And because they had it was the BMW tournament, all you do is show a pair of BMW keys, which one of my friends had. Mm-hmm. We were in the BMW lounge on 17 and 18, overlooking the whole thing, the whole night.
And go ahead,
great setup and cheap. That was the best part.
Cheap is the best. Yeah.
But that 8 holes playoff was epic. Watching the crowd shift back and forth between the holes, watching everything go on, the drama between DeChambeau rifling that freaking driver like you can't even.
Yeah.
Popeye arms and all, that guy. Well, you know what I really liked about him in the press afterwards yesterday? He's the most friendly guy on earth, it seems like. He's a brave pro,
That's where he changed for me. Like, the Bryson DeChambeau that I remember was the guy who was brash and thought, you know what, I'm going to be different than everyone else, which I like that. But he just seemed to throw it in everybody's face, and he had this attitude. It was just like, I wanted to kick his ass. So like, come out of the parking lot after you're around, I'm gonna kick your ass. So you get right. But I tell you what, he's changed so much. He's so personable. He's all of these things that you wish golfers would be. He is.
So last night I stayed up probably until midnight watching not just SportsCenter, but I was flipping through the channels and I watched the PGA channel, the golf channel. And they were interviewing Bryson finally at about 10 p.m. live.
I saw that.
He was still there signing autographs with fans all the way through the night, stuff like that. He was hanging out with his friends. His post-game speech or his post-match speech.
I loved it.
he
I
wanted
want
to
you guys to enjoy what I am feeling.
Totally awesome. Like that is a personable sports figure. That is the guy you want to market. That is the guy you want representing golf. I hate to
Hell
say.
yeah.
Like,
Hell yeah.
That's
And he
the guy you want
live
representing golf every way.
Well, and the funny thing is, and I bet he misses the PGA Tour just for that reason.
Sure.
Because I'm pretty sure live golf isn't the same thing. There isn't that same touchy-feely kind of thing.
You know, they don't have the crowds. They don't have the location. Like they don't have the big thing. Now he's getting the money. I get all that.
Yeah, he gets the money way more than he gets in the PGA.
One of the guys that honestly, I mean, depending on the merger and all that, he might flip back, which is fine, which would be great for his popularity and everything else. Now, like you said, the cool thing about him that's been exposed probably over the last few months, and even yesterday when I found out, is just like his thought process is different than everybody. Obviously,
It is
you know, he went in the weight room a few years ago and got Popeyed up, and there he looked awesome doing it.
Thank you, Tiger. Another thing that Tiger introduced to the golf game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Weightlifting. When Tiger was benching 400, people were like, "Oh, what the hell is he doing? He's a golfer." No, you know what? He was damn good because of it.
Yeah, he's an athlete. You know, when people say golfers aren't athletes, they're wrong. I used to be one of those people, and still until I embraced the sport 20 years ago. It's you know,
when you were out here like barely driving 250, maybe 300 on a lucky day, DeChambeau's hitting 330 rifles every freaking day and cutting the course down.
Well, and let's be real, you know, he got so lucky over the last 2 or 3 days. Many people who hit into those weeded areas, those native areas.
That's why all the scores were over.
Yeah, but he seemed to always get the right line. He made an important point during that PGA discussion with the panel after the thing. Sometimes, like the one shot towards the end, he had to hit sideways because of where it was in that native area.
Yeah.
But other times, because of he has different shafts than everybody else, he has different angles, and it's more upright. Those helped him. He said, I was able to get around the little knobs and hit the ball cleanly because of the way my shafts, because of how his clubs are made.
You know the story behind his shafts, right? They're all manufactured being 3D printing.
I heard that. That is incredible.
He's not on a brand, right? He's on some brand, but it's not a traditional like Ping, Tyler made, all that stuff. He's on some independent brand that decided to go revolutionary, and they custom tailor your clubs, obviously, to your swing, your pitch, everything else. I'm sure they've done all the calculations, but he is literally on 3D printed clubs, and his clubs don't actually have numbers like you and I do, like on irons. It has a degree.
That's it. And that's the only difference, because all of his clubs and his shafts are the same. It's just the one change in degree, because they were saying like when he hits his 9-iron, like one of the shots was like 190 yards. 190 yards, even Popeye on 2-3 cans of spinach is to hit the ball with a 9-iron that far. And he just does it with ease.
Yep. No, like I said, and the way, like, I know I'm sure you probably saw him a million times in the box when he was hitting his driver. There's a couple times I think they showed him on some highlights, like literally almost out of his shoes as he's striking the ball. And I'm saying, like, if I did that, I'd shank or whiff or something, you know, something bad would happen. This guy literally is ball striking as he's coming out of his shoes. And it's wailing straight. And I'm like, there's something to it where it's timing his mechanics just right every time. And it comes down to the club and everything else that he's got going on in the angles. Like, he's just got muscle memory to the point where he's swinging it the same way. He's letting the club do the work with the angles and everything else he's got going on technologically.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other, I think that's this morning, I woke up at like 6, and the other interview I saw on him, or maybe it was his caddy, was talking about how the night before they take all the balls that are in his bag and they put them in an Epsom salt.
Put them in an Epsom salt bath to see the floods, to understand the exact center of the ball. Yep,
that's cool.
And that's what I do like about him. When he first came on the scene, I wasn't so keen in that, but he's using his brain and science to give him an edge. Nothing wrong with that. He's not cheating.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to go use that hack this weekend.
I mean, I think that's a great way to do it. And quite frankly, you know, just to get back to the type of person he was and the performance that he had, here's a guy, honestly, I was yelling at the TV. I was ready for him to choke. The only reason he didn't lose that tournament is because Rory choked harder.
I looked at the live odds walking into 16 on my app, on
And
MGM.
Rory was probably favored at that point.
Rory was favored at a minus 190, and DeChambeau was going off at plus 200. I'm like, let me throw some money on this.
I wish I would have thrown. I wish, and I was thinking about it. That's when you throw $100 up there.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, Bryson wasn't looking great.
No, I mean, until Rory bogeyed, like nobody knew, obviously. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm sitting with my son and my mom. We're sitting there because it's Father's Day and everything, and I'm like, I hate to root against somebody because I always, as a competitor, for me, it wasn't that I wanted you to do poorly. I just wanted to do better than you. So if you had your best game, I want to have a little bit better.
Yep.
And I told them that, and as I said it, I said, but this time I need Rory to miss this putt. And it was like a 4-foot putt. It's usually a gimme in the pros, right? Man, he did the DeChambeau because DeChambeau had just missed the putt the hole before, same way.
Well, and he did that at the BMW 3 times against Cantley, and that's what cost him in that overtimer because he walked into 15 with a 2-stroke lead at the BMW when I was here.
Ooh.
And then it went to a playoff, and an 8-hole playoff that was just epic to watch. And Cantley was just firing rifles left and right, and sure enough, pulled it out against DeChambeau. And that was when DeChambeau, I think, was getting that bad guy reputation.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was. Remember with him and Brooks Koepka? Remember him and Brooks Koepka? Yep.
Brooksy's still a bad guy, apparently.
Actually, I've always liked Brooks Koepka.
I like him, though, yeah.
I like him, but I have to say, DeChambeau has now eclipsed him because, and maybe the world of golf, if anyone's listening, that is what you need to teach your players to be. If you want people to come out there and spend their thousands of dollars to watch the 18 holes with your people, buy beer in the tents, buy memorabilia and stuff, that's how you get people in the game. Bryson was sitting during the match, hitting people's hands as he's going from here to there. He's doing this. He's yelling to the crowd. They're yelling back. That's what you need. You need personality. We don't want to feel like we're watching people who can't be touched. Like, what?
Scotty's been a robot, right? Like lately. Like, I mean,
he has been.
And greatest golfer.
I
love the guy, but he's not that personality figure that golf needs to bring in the common, the masses, right? Like that's the thing. Yeah, that's the piece.
Tiger was black. That's all Tiger had. So he brought in people just on that. But for everybody else, that's what you need to have, a little personality. I get it. There's a focus to it, but Bryson said it best. And I think people do this in life. I know I have, because otherwise I'd probably be in jail for all the injustices that have been, thrusted upon me just because of my color. Sure. Or my intelligence. Color and intelligence wasn't a good thing back then. but this is where I feel like, we need to be able to look at a situation and compartmentalize it. Yeah. I just did a great shot. I'm going to turn around to the crowd and go, yeah, you like that? Mm-hmm. Great. That doesn't make me arrogant or anything. I'm playing to the crowd. I'm including them in my experience. That's what everybody who watches sports wants to be. We're living vicariously through your actions. We're cheering you on, and we want to see you do well because it makes us feel good, like as if we did it too.
You ever notice the best fan interactions or experiences are when there's some sort of common pride? And I like to think it's more about like nationalistic pride. So like the Olympics.
Yeah,
or for golf, it's the Ryder Cup, right? Mm-hmm. For tennis, like I know in Davis Cup, it's a great atmosphere for fans. Anytime like a country versus country, or like one sect versus other, like
for college versus college, you have it there too.
That atmosphere cannot be beat anywhere in the world for any sport, in my opinion. Like that is the greatest feeling in the world as a fan, because you have fandom behind whatever groups you have, and you respect what is going on. Like that's just cool to watch. But that's where I think what's missing in golf is, like you said, between the fan interaction, which is going to be, hopefully, there you go. There you go. There you go. but that's the thing, though. Like, that's what's missing is that fan interaction. And I get that, players need focus, so they need quiet time on the tee and all that stuff. But I love the roaring. I love the interactive crowds. I mean, the U.S. Open tennis compared to all other tennis, I think, is far and away the best example. Like, crowds still talk in New York. They trash talk players. The whole 9 yards happens in the crowd, Even though you get silent during the points, you still hear that interactive atmosphere. You go to Wimbledon, everybody's sipping tea, and French Open, they're eating their bagels or whatever,
Eating their bagels.
Sorry, they're
crumpets. They're crumpets. Crumpets.
Yes, crumpets. Sorry, they're crumpets. They're tea and crumpets. It's just like, sorry, it doesn't work this way. Like, sports are not intended to be some silent atmosphere. I'm sorry, but that's for a chess match, not for.
You know, I agree with that, and I think we lose some of that. I think it's the and just to be frank, it's the elitism or elitist mindset. Because if you just named three sports, or two at least, tennis and golf, those are elitist sports.
Sports, but honestly, the points of entry are too expensive. And I complain this about parents too. Like, I was very lucky to live in an area where both were cheap to play, and that's why I got good at them. Because only you get good at something if you practice routinely and have access to those things.
Yes.
You know,
I got good at tennis the same way, Promit, and probably not.
That's why you don't see the kid in the ghetto out at the golf course.
Exactly.
The range balls cost freaking $10.
Exactly. That's why you don't see black hockey players. That's why you don't see, because you have to have money and access. My mom almost killed me when I was a kid because I moved to the north side of Chicago. I learned how to ice skate. Well, my first set of ice skates, the CCM Super Tax or whatever they were called, was like $100. That was like $1 million to us when we moved. We were poor. We just left the ghetto. I got a tennis racket. First racket was a Yamaha graphic tennis racket.
There you go.
Because they were just building tennis courts right across the street from our house, and I had access. But even that, you know, like I was like, hey, can you afford the tennis balls? Because I ain't got them today.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You play those tennis balls until they don't bounce.
We literally, exactly. You got to pump enter into them. But that's the whole point. Like you just said, we named off three of arguably the most expensive entry points for sports. And
black people in them.
That whole elite vibe. I mean, those three sports are the ones you see at country clubs, unfortunately, and stuff like that.
You said it. You have to be a member of something for the most part to have the access. Well, membership costs money, and quite frankly, people like you and me, and maybe more of your brownness than my brownness, are not looking to go to a place, spend money, and then be the token of appreciation. I've been the token of appreciation for so long in my life. Being the only one. And where's Waldo? There he is. Well, I remember when I went to the Blackhawks game. We went to the Blackhawks game, me and my wife. This is like 20 years ago. I came up the wrong aisle.
Yeah.
At least 6, 7 people looked at me, and I'm talking like I'm 3 aisles over from where I'm supposed to be. And they pointed to my wife to show me where I'm supposed to be because they knew I was there.
They didn't know that you weren't PK Subban?
I'm not even sure PK was born. How old is he? But that's, like, if we can get more people involved and make it more accessible, you probably see even more greatness, sort of akin to what we talked about before. Now they're moving the Negro League stats in. Well, we should have been able to play with them too, and not in exhibition games. And then you probably would have boosted the level of play for everyone.
100%.
But that probably would have excluded some of the people that they want to be in there, right? That look more like them as opposed to like us.
Definitely. I think back to this way, and I'm probably going to contextualize or bring in two things that might be completely separate. Like you just said, from slavery, you had folks that had to work in the fields. Golf, I'm going to make an assumption, greenskeepers and things of that nature were probably colored at some point.
Yes, back in the day, yes, they were.
They probably knew the course better than anyone.
Yes.
And
who was his name? Charlie Sifford? What was his name?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just think if those guys were allowed to play.
Hello. Bagger Vance.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been Bagger Vance times 100 right now. Yeah.
But again, that's not what we wanted to see. We didn't want to give access because we're not trying to be, and this goes back to what I'm saying about how we need to show our history. Our history needs to point these things out so we understand that the more that we include people, the bigger the whole becomes.
Yeah.
Because we allow the various things that made America great, and not in the way that's being used today, that we brought people here and they brought their culture, they brought their language, they brought their food, they brought their talents, and then we meshed them all together, and look at what we became because of it. But then once we got to that point, it was like, well, wait a minute, we want certain people to not have access. I don't want Native Americans. I don't want black people or African American. I don't like that term. I've been black all my life, like black more than African American. I've never been Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's an interesting point too. So I've always seen that as a misnomer in many ways, right? Like some people prefer being called black, and black what it is. The other one's like African American. Yet if I ask those same African Americans selfishly, and I'm like, okay, so where are your roots?
They don't know. On African Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia.
They're all from the continent. I'm like, you do realize Africa has 42 countries in it? Like,
right.
Shit. And I'm sorry, but everyone is different, because I can tell you that from my own family that lives there.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, again, like, we need to give access, because that is what makes us great.
Yes.
Everything I want to see from Asian, and I'm sorry, they have terms now. It's like, we can't do anything. It's cultural appropriation.
Yeah, right.
You and your cultural appropriation.
Exactly.
You know what? Everything is a cultural appropriation if you think about it. How did these things get started? So now I'm not ever supposed to appreciate something by wearing it and show that I support it because I'm culturally. Get out of my face with that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what makes us great. That's what the world has been on. Heck, I remember when I was a kid, you'd watch the news programs, right? And they were all, like you were saying about the people watching tennis, right? They were all like, yes, and we need to make sure. And you're right, Janet? Yes, and I'll report on this. Now they use terms that are all from the ghetto, that are all, even have Ebonics now. They even have Ebonics they use on TV, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It wasn't cool when I was using it. You made me feel like I was ignorant and undereducated or not educated. But now that it's cool, we all accept it. And look at what's happening to the language and the way we communicate now.
100%.
All of that's cool now. But before, it was Ebonics and it was all frowned upon. Yep. So let's not talk about a cultural appropriation. Everything that's being done is some type of, you go eat Chinese food. Should you not eat Chinese food then? Because what? Can I not make it at home? I'm not supposed to make it at home because really that's not my culture. Right. So we're supposed to stay in our lane? No, that's not how we work. That's not how you grow. That's not how you include people. That's how you exclude people.
Yep. Nope. 100% agree. Couldn't argue less there. That's just it's ridiculous that society has gotten to where it is based on that. Like you said, everything was appropriated at some point. Everything. So why stop now?
You know what? Take the good in what you see in things. That's what you do in life. I experience something where I go on a trip or I go on a walk on the lakefront and I see something that I enjoy, and then I try to incorporate that into my life because I feel like that's a great thing and I didn't know about it, and I think it's something that I want to use again. Does that make me a bad person now?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we are as a society. And I know, you know what? I'm going to stop calling myself Roy or Browner. I'm going to call myself Off on a Tangent, because I go off on a tangent all the damn time. As I've gotten older, I already forgot where I started. So it's like the person who was driving without the GPS. I got it. And then you lost as fuck. That's me sometimes.
Idea. A brown tangent.
That almost sounds like a combination of the two characters in Bullet Train. So you got, I could be Brown Tangerine.
That was a good movie.
Oh, all right. We digress.
Yep. But no, like,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, kind of back to the U.S. Open. I thought it was a memorable one. Typically we like to see like the whole like, hey, player gets to see his dad kind of thing. It was sad that obviously DeChambeau's dad passed after that first Open, but honestly, that was just cool how he dedicated it also to Payne Stewart, which was awesome.
And right away, when he first, see, again, total personality. He hit that putt. He did his roar one way. He did his roar the other way. Let's go.
The other guy putt.
Yeah. And then after he did that, he turned his hat around so you could see the Payne Stewart logo there. Again, this is what we need. We need in golf and in everything. Let's appreciate the people before us who were great and gave us the opportunity to be great as well. And let's be respectful of the things that we do and the people around us. Like you said, with, hey, hold on, this guy's still putting. I don't care if I won. And they were booing him. Do you remember right before he got ready to putt, he actually got booed. Yeah. How the hell do you boo somebody for focusing in and trying to win a tournament? You're supposed to just let this guy go and then put more pressure on yourself and then choke it up. Then they boo you again.
Yep.
But that's where we are. This is America.
You just reminded me of something. So I don't know if you watch Nick Kyrgios in tennis.
You know what? I like the guy. He
I
does
love
look.
it.
You need to
He
tone
pushes
that
the
stuff
button.
down just a little bit. He
He
needs some
like, he
medication.
pushes the button because sometimes he goes, not necessarily with his attitude. Well, no, it is because of his attitude. It's because he gets a little smug about it, right? Like,
oh yes, he does.
and that's the problem. Like, he takes it to where it needs to be, I think, in tennis, where we have more of that like interaction and stuff like that.
In
The
fire,
cool comedy, the vigor, the attitude that he has on the court with the swagger and stuff. I love it.
I'm okay with that, and he's a good player too.
Good player. That's the scary part. Yeah, but now with all I think he's got injuries and all that aside, and just some of his, I think, mental health issues and everything else he's got going on. I'm just like, this dude could have been something if he had better PR around him, right? Like if he could have had a little bit more like marketing skill around him, he could have been the next fun guy in tennis. Because honestly, we've had, I mean, granted, Roger Federer, one of my idols, Rafael Nadal, Pete Sampras has always been my idol and always will be my idol.
I liked all three of them.
Three of those guys, quiet, reserved, respectful.
McEnroe. We need some more McEnroes.
We need more McEnroe.
We need.
I want more McEnroe. I want more Connors. I want more bad boy tennis.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm okay with the villain and the good. And I'll root for the villain sometimes.
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
Heck yeah. I'm okay with that. It adds personality.
It's like when Nike came up, they sponsored Federer first, and then they brought in Rafa, and Rafa, they brought in this bull, right? This black bull as his image. And they kind of almost made him out to be like the bad guy, in some ways. Like it's like, oh, it's Rafa versus Federer. It's good versus evil, all that stuff. So that was kind of the twist. But you know what? It was done in a respectful way. But frankly, you had two guys that were very not as outgoing charismatically, which is fine. But I mean, in their afterlife, they've obviously done well for themselves. They're talking more now and stuff like that. But during that time, they didn't invigorate tennis as much. Now, when you had the Andre Agassi's of the world, you had characters.
What was his line?
Before that, you had characters.
Image is everything.
Yeah, before McEnroe, you had Ilie Nastase in the 70s.
Oh, I loved Ilie Nastase.
And then Mansour Barami. I got to meet.
He had so much attitude. What's that?
Yeah, I got to meet Mansour Barami. I don't know if you heard of that guy.
I remember the name, but I'm not.
He's a 70s player in the pro circuit. Since that time, he still plays in the seniors. The guy literally has fun on the court. Like, it's just hilarious to watch this guy. There's YouTube clips of him all over the place too. But the guy is just comical to watch. It's just fun. Like, you wouldn't expect it out of some guy that, Iranian born in the 70s, coming to the United States and playing. It's like, oh, big deal. The guy was hilarious on the court. Like, between him and Nastase, they probably carried tennis, honestly, in the 60s and 70s.
Until they got McEnroe and Connors and a few others there before and what have you. Which to me, those were the golden years of tennis. I'm sorry, that's how I felt. Because if you could, any of those guys could win. There was a period of time where only certain guys, and even now, only certain guys win. But then any one of five people could have won any tournament at any time.
100%. Like if Djokovic wasn't a robot or sometimes kind of a dick, he'd be kind of,
Yeah, he's a dick. He's an uncircumcised dick. That's what he is.
Like he could walk out with 30 Grand Slams by the end of his career, and I still won't recognize him as the best, even though he is on paper. Don't get me wrong. The guy will go down as the GOAT when it comes to playing because he beat the best and he did all of it. But I will still respect Roger, Pete, Rafa more than I will him.
I would have to go with that too because I like those people. I don't like Djokovic. He's a great tennis player. Don't like him. But back to Nick, when you said that, I think Nick's problem, as great as he was as a tennis player, was that, quite frankly, he was a petulant child when it came to dealing with issues in the moment. And I think that petulance was the reason why he never got marketed the way he could have to make his name bigger, to change his image, whatever it was, because I think he was just like, fuck everything. Don't market me. I'll market myself by the way I play on the court and how I act.
Almost a reflection on current society about just trying to get fame and, likes and all that stuff that you see, social media wise and all that. Like, he kind of caters to that, unfortunately. You know what I mean? In a kind of a bad way. Now, had he been a little bit more off-puttish on that and just kind of focused in, even his pure talent on the court is freakish.
Oh yeah.
He's got game. If he could just hone it in, he could have won a Grand Slam by now, I think, or two, maybe.
One or two. He's got the ability, but it's between here. What's the difference in greatness between these two ears here? Because they all have talent. That's why they're professionals. And it's the 1% of all of the people who play their specific sports.
Exactly.
But what makes greatness? It's and we're going to talk. I was going to talk about this, and I went somewhere else with it. But what Bryson DeChambeau said about compartmentalizing things and being in the moment and being able to take that interaction with the fans and cut it off, get right back into the moment. Those are the guys who are the greatest players ever in their respective sports.
Yep.
Heroes definitely weren't going to be that. But I feel like there are so many athletes out here now that don't understand that difference. And I almost want to say it's like I learned you wanted to be great at what you did. Today's world, we're learning if you're okay at it, you can think of yourself great.
Considered great, which is kind of ridiculous. Exactly.
Like, it's not. And you got these people walking around just want to be handed the greatness and don't want to earn it. Yep. And I'm sorry, you got to earn that. You got to go through the trials and tribulations. You got to lose.
People,
the Pistons bad boy 30. And it was great because it showed how they struggled against the Celtics. It showed how they then conquered that. It showed how the Bulls struggled against them, and then they conquered it. That's how you achieve greatness. You don't just get it handed to you. You got to work for it.
The concept of having to beat the best to be the best has been lost in this generation.
Oh, man.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and some of it, the excuse that's used is, oh, I just didn't get a chance to play them in their prime. I'm sorry. You still need to beat the best to be the best if you're going to be that way. Now, that's where I give Joker credit. You know, he's beaten the Federers.
He's beaten the best.
Yes. He worked his ass off. He changed his game. He changed his diet the whole 9 yards to make it work. You know, same thing with Federer. And, you know, when he started off, he struggled against the Agassiz and Sampras. Then he started kicking their butts. Nadal, fitness regimen, you know, got over Federer's hump. Everybody worked their asses off to get that next phase in life. But not, you know, this new generation where, you know, they're not willing to make that incremental sacrifice in personal or whatever it is to get that next level of greatness. And that's what I love, like you said, love about that about DeChambeau. He spoke to it as if he was a veteran, which is crazy. And the funny thing is, with what he did yesterday, he literally enters the books with only Bobby Jones, Tiger, and Jack or whoever did. Like, you know,
listen to that. He's the fourth in that group. Yeah. The other three are legendary.
Legends.
So here, Bryson, let me clap it up for you.
Yes, sir.
For all of those people who are out there hating you, they don't know who you are. And I was one of those haters, and I was converted because you are what sports should be about. Making yourself great, figuring out the advantages you can have, however that is, within the rules, and then being able to interact with the sport in a way that makes it fun for you and fun for the people that are watching you. Because they're the ones who make you. You don't make that money without the people watching you. And people forget that. And it's like you do need a decorum. You do need that at times. But you also need to show what it is to be human, the elation and the sorrow, and every putt that you make, you falling to your knees because you care. That's what it's about.
That element of human emotion, that's what's missing sometimes in championship runs. Like I could almost guarantee, like tonight, if the Celtics win, like Jason Tatum's a pretty stoic guy, it seems like. I don't know if he's going to go crazy. Jason Tatum for sure Jaylen Brown is definitely very stoic, you know, in his own. Yeah. So like I don't even know if you're going to see like crazy reactions out of them. You know, that's where I love like last year when the Nuggets won. I love the fact that Joker is just so humble. Like that dude's just simple.
I like him. He's just so underrated. They still don't want to call him the best player in basketball, but he is. The LeBron, the Kevin Durant, and all those other people, the young guys coming up, great for you, Ant-Man and Shea, but that's the standard. He's the best player.
He has the most fun playing the game, honestly. Like, and he goes back to his simple roots in Serbia. He was a horse farm or whatever the hell it is.
I love that stuff when they say that. It's like he's so plain, but he's so intense when he's on the court.
Intense on the court. Like that dude is tuned in, has the talent, like the whole 9 yards. Like you can't teach that kind of stuff. It's innate. That's what makes greatness.
And that is what makes greatness. And the funny thing is, I feel like people have the talent, but they don't have that extra factor that what we were talking about before. You can be good. Nick, you're good. But to be great, you got to do this. You got to be that.
It's kind of comical to me that it wasn't until now that we're starting to realize what the Jordans and the Kobes of the world did to separate themselves. because like when you watch The Last Dance, you understand Michael Jordan's determination and like when they're interviewing and stuff like that. When you see all these quotes about Kobe after death now, unfortunately, like you see how much determination and grit this guy had that separated him from the masses. Like, yeah, they all had the talent, but they knew how to take that thing and make it to the next level to where they were the greatest in some fashion. You got even Shaq. I mean, Shaq apparently didn't have the work ethic, but boy, did that talent overcome anything else. He was a freak of nature.
Monster. He was a monster, and look at how he shifted the two franchises, the Magic and the Lakers. Not even talking about the Heat, just those two.
Yep.
How big of a difference it became, because Orlando could have been the next big team.
Yep.
But
they blew it up. They blew it up for the wrong reason. They got rid of Shaq. Then Penny Hardaway fell to his knees, and yeah, it just
Well, and one thing I wanted to say about your comment about the greatness part, you said like Kobe and Jordan. If you notice, trying to think of somebody who was great that was actually personable. I can't think of any.
It's hard.
Jordan, I would have never wanted to. I'm sure Paxson or was it Kerr? It was Kerr. I'm sure Kerr, as much as he, poo-poos it and all of that, I'm sure he is still pissed off about being punched in the face by some guy. I don't care if it's Michael Jordan. But that was the intensity that they had to become great. But a lot of times that intensity alienated themselves. Even Tiger Woods, the 2.0 Tiger Woods is not a good golfer, but he's a better person.
Yep.
The 1.0 Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer, but he wasn't a good person.
Inside of Tiger with his son now, I think, and that's what's kind of cool. And I actually like the little clips they have with his son, doing pressers and stuff. That dude got fun personality. If he turns into the PGA guy, I think he'll be a lot of fun.
I think so too, because I don't think he has the same. Like, I'm sorry, being taught by somebody in the military, I bet Tiger wasn't allowed to do, like, he had blinders on and how he focused in what he did. And that's great, and it made him great, but it probably took his childhood away. It probably took a lot of things of who he was. It took that away from him, and he had to become this in order to become what his father wanted him to become, which I'm not knocking that. I'm sure Tiger wouldn't trade his life in for anything, but you could think about people like the Michael Jacksons. Michael Jackson was destined for fame. He was destined to be great, but in that pursuit of the greatness, he lost his childhood, he lost himself, and eventually he lost his life. So, I do think that there has to be a balance there. And don't get me wrong, I love the greatness. I love Tom Brady. Look at him. If you look at all of the really great ones, are any of them even still married? Because it's like he had to say, it was like a police officer who worked 20-hour days. You just had to sacrifice your life for your
That is a very valid observation, though. If you think about it, all the greats,
besides Jack Nicklaus,
besides Jack, honestly had to go kind of the individualism route, unfortunately, which was kind of sad. But and like you said, they missed out on many things during their lives. Some of them are disconnected from their kids and stuff like that. Like even look at Dennis Rodman. I mean,
oh my God, I feel honestly, his daughters. It's like, wow, you know what? They were able to overcome some of that. But yeah, like Dennis Rodman and his kids, or who got it worse? Sean Kemp and his kids. Sean Kemp on an island because what he's got, like 50 kids. Come on, man. At least he didn't call them all Sean like George Foreman, but
Antonio Cromartie had 13 kids from like 12 women.
I mean, come on. Did you never hear of a condom? Did you never once hear of a condom? Just once.
What did I read over the weekend? There's something bizarre I read. Was it Ziggy Marley? Has like 20 kids?
I don't know that. I'm gonna ask my wife because she's really into the Marley family. And although my daughter was named after Bob Marley because we met his mother Cedella when we were in Jamaica, I'd never heard that one. But I do know Bob Marley loved his queens. And he considered any woman, it didn't matter what she looked like, where she came from, if he connected, that was his queen.
Apparently that's what Ziggy too. So he, multiple women. And I think he may even be kind of like, polygamous in some fashion because all of them seem to get along with each other too.
And that was the same with Bob. They knew about each other. That's what you had to do.
Yep. Kind of crazy.
I don't know, but this is a joke, like some people are like, I never wanted to have more than one woman because I know my headache. I can deal with that headache. I know what to do. I need to take.
If you have the ability to multi-process, power to you.
Power to you, but I sure as hell don't want to do it. But if I ever wanted to have some kind of paradise on earth, imagine having like a variety of women that had different qualities about themselves
Yeah.
that you could interact with
Yep.
and in all different ways, every way. And there would be no
That's about
flack
your
from
experience.
the other ones.
Yep.
And you could sit with them all and have a great time and just pick one and say, well, we're going to, spend the night together. Maybe you tomorrow. I don't know, but that would sort of be heaven like for me on earth.
Sure.
Minus the
Top
headaches.
ladder, no problem.
Yeah. I say honey, and then 5 people stand up.
Yeah,
Yeah, hey, me.
Yeah. Man, attention like that, things have changed.
Yeah, man. Ziggy, the high five to Ziggy, boy. You did that, and you're not a sheik or anything. Oh man, you the man. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's. Yeah, I mean, like I said, but like I said, unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, when people have had this level of greatness in sports, unfortunately, some disconnect, in other parts of their lives, which is kind of sad. Now you got, like I said, the opposites. You got Jack Nicklaus, you got Roger Federer, you got Pete Sampras. Some of those guys, no problem. And maybe because it was just in the sports that we're in, perhaps. I don't know. Hell, even Leo Messi, technically one woman his whole life that we know of. Cristiano Ronaldo, on the other hand, not so much.
Hey, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Hello? I lost. All I did was just shift my weight and my back is hurting.
Check your connection.
I lost the connection. I cannot hear you.
What about your plug?
Not in my ear or anything.
Okay.
And I didn't move. That's the weird thing.
Huh.
I don't see why I wouldn't hear you anymore. I'm sorry, Comment.
Hear me now?
Because I missed that last one, and I wanted to hear it too.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
It's gone.
No?
Say something.
Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not allowing me to get anything, and I didn't move, so I don't understand why I lost you. Man, and I wanted to hear what you said because I do this. All right.
Yeah, here?
You can hear me. I can hear you. I'm not going through what we went through earlier to deal with all of this. We can end it here. Hopefully, so we recorded your last comment because then we'll end with that. Question for you. What are we going to do with, so tomorrow, you want to meet?
Tomorrow.
What time?
Whatever time works for you.
Let's do 8:30 again?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's meet and let's make it, we got 4, especially since we made some Father's Day references on this. I'd like to try to get some of these out.
Yeah.
All right. So we can meet tomorrow and take care of it.
Yep.
Sounds good. And I know you're still recording. I know we're doing one way, but all I want to say is Brown and Browner, we're giving you in-depth, meaningful commentary about life, not just sports, about life. Remember that. And what can Brown and Browner do for you?
Nice. I'll catch you later.
All right, P squared.
Later.
I don't have a cool name.